What's going on, guys? Killer6 back with another Borderlands 3 video for you, and this time we're diving into the Bloody Harvest, the seasonal Halloween event where you can earn some sweet loot. And with today's update comes some new hotfixes which will buff more weapons and gear, and some very impressive changes to Zane's skill trees and class mods. So let's get into this. With the return of the Bloody Harvest comes haunted enemies and terror, a frightening status effect that will leave Vault Hunters a little shaken up. Haunted enemies can inflict the terror debuff, which will affect your aim and partially cloud your vision, but it can leave you with a boost of power when paired with anointments that will only be available during this event. The landscape of Borderlands 3 has changed since last year, and with that, the terror anointments are also receiving some balance changes today. Players who do not want to see haunted enemies and do not want to be a part of this event will now have an option this year to turn off the Bloody Harvest event at the main menu. Alright, so starting off, the Bloody Harvest will be activated from October 8th through November 5th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, so you have about a month this time compared to last year when it seemed to drag on a bit too long. That said, I would still love an option to keep the Bloody Harvest in game year round. Also, Alita will now consistently lead players to the Traitor Weed testing area and the Bounty of Blood DLC. This is a fix for DLC 3, and it is completely unrelated to the Bloody Harvest, just so you guys know. Also, another change to the game, and this one involves Mayhem modifier Galaxy Brain. It will no longer prevent players from talking to Krieg or entering the loot room in the Psycho Krieg and the Fantastic Fustercluck DLC. This actually happened to me, and using the Galaxy Brain obviously makes enemy heads huge, and that blocks you from getting into the portal at the end of the 4th DLC, and that was a pain in the butt, so I'm glad to see that they fixed that. Now on to some Bloody Harvest weapon and anointment changes. The Fearmonger, they are increasing the number of bullets per shot per terror level and increasing the weapon's damage. The Stalker Sniper Rifle that comes from this event is going to see increased weapon damage. The Aghast Call, which is one of the most highly sought after grenade mods in the game and is only available during this event, will also see its damage increased as well. Now, all three of these items were already decent last time around, but since then there's been a lot of changes to the way that the game works, so hopefully these buffs are enough to keep them competitive with other items. The Aghast Call is a must-have grenade mod, and the Fearmonger has tremendous potential with the increase in bullets per shot. The Stalker was probably my least favorite last time, as its ammo consumption versus damage was way off, but we'll see how it feels this time around. There are some changes to terror anointments as well. The anointment, while terrified, gain increased damage and fire rate. The more terror you have, the higher the bonus. We'll see its damage increased from the original, which was 5%, 10%, and 15% depending on your terror level, to 15%, 25%, and 35% at max stacks of terror. I mean, imagine 35% fire rate and 35% damage on just about any weapon in the game, and you can see why this anointment is a really strong one. The anointment, while terrified, deal 50% bonus cryo damage, will be increased to 75%, and I'll be honest, I don't think this one's going to be enough to really make this that viable, especially for Zane, who already has much better cryo skills just by default. While terrified, enemy bullets have a chance to reflect off of you. The more terror you have, the higher the bonus. The original damage bonus for this was 15%, 30%, and 45% at max terror stacks, and that's being increased to 70% at 1 stack, 85% at 2 stacks, and 100% at 3 stacks of terror. Most reflect skills in Borderlands 3 have been kind of subpar, but hopefully this change makes this a viable option. The anointment on action skill end, apply terror to yourself every 5 seconds for the next 18 seconds. They're just adjusting the text to match what's happening in game. The Siren anointment, after phase grasping an enemy, Amara fires terror skulls at grasped target, dealing damage. We'll see an increased damage bonus. The Beastmaster anointment, after using attack command, consume all terror, and Flax Pet gains 50% bonus fire damage for a short time. We'll see an increased damage bonus as well. This anointment could be really good for a Flak Pet build, as the 50% bonus fire damage when combined with the Scorcher augment could make your pet very, very strong. The Gunner anointment, after reloading, consume all terror and create a Nova that deals cryo damage, will also see increased damage bonus. And honestly, unless this gets some sort of really good Mayhem 10 scaling, I don't see this being very good, especially since the main aspect of the Gunner, Mose, is that you don't really reload that often. You're mostly just shooting your guns non-stop. Now on to some weapon buffs. Dull burst weapons increase the burst fire rate of AR, SMG, and pistol weapons. This does not affect legendary weapons, however, and honestly that's fine. Dull legendaries are actually in a pretty good place right now, and this makes it so that the purple and blue dull weapons out there will actually feel a little bit more competitive with other blue and purple weapons that you get as you're playing through the game early on. The Laser Sploder, they are increasing the damage scaling and mag size. The conference call, the initial target will now be hit with the weapon's extra projectiles, and this could be very promising, especially versus larger targets where you can hit them with all the projectiles. I cannot wait to see how this gun performs. The Maggie, slightly increased weapon damage. This is my baby. The Maggie got inadvertently nerfed a little while back, and with this hotfix, it looks like they're giving her back her superpowers, and hopefully it makes it so that this gun is back to where it was before some of these recent changes. Now, probably one of the biggest buffs is the Psycho Stabber, and I know a lot of people are probably listening in right now and going, Psycho Stabber, what the hell is that? I've never even used that. And that's because it drops from Borderlands in the Meridian outskirts, and early on in this game, Borderlands was a rare spawn, very rarely ever spawned, so a lot of people didn't even bother to farm Borderlands, especially not for a weapon that back in the day only had 120% melee damage. The melee damage now has been increased to 340%, and holy hell, this has just become the melee weapon that everybody's going to want. So before anybody asks, in order to find Borderlands, you need to go to the Meridian outskirts map and go get one of these, try it out, try to land yourself one that has an Annoyment that will further complement a melee build as well. And then the final weapon buff is for the Masterwork Crossbow. This one will see increased weapon damage. The crossbow is one of those guns that, once again, probably a lot of you guys have never even seen drop, let alone used. It only drops from Ulrist Enforcer on the map Lecture City. Ulrist used to be a rare spawn, which made this gun a nightmare to farm, but Gearbox luckily decided to scrap the whole rare spawn idea and make Ulrist and Borman from the Psycho Stabber spawn every single time. It is still tough to farm, however, this gun has very high base damage already, so it'll be interesting to see how much this buff brings that damage up even more. And this gun, you don't want to really use this gun as a sniper, even though it's a sniper. This thing is a one-shot crossbow. You want to use it in crossbow range, and it does have actual projectile drop-off as well, so keep that in mind. You always want to aim slightly above their head depending on how far away you are, and this thing is pretty strong, so we'll see how this goes. Now on to some changes to Zane the Operative. They're releasing several changes to Zane's passive skills and class mods. They wrote, after buffing weapons, we started looking at how class mods were impacting the build diversity of Vault Hunters. After investigating community feedback, we developed these changes to make more class mods viable for Zane at the end game. Most of the passive skill buffs changed today are used by class mods that have been underperforming. Additional changes to Zane are already planned, with some coming in future hotfixes and patches, and this to me is really exciting. Sure, Zane is already in a pretty good place, but his green tree was basically just used for the top half, and everybody knows that his See Undead class mod was like the only choice for most builds, and that sucks for people that just have the base game. So let's go over some of these changes, starting with the skills. Cold Bore, increase the bonus damage. This skill provides extra damage on the first bullet of a weapon swap. This bonus happens infrequently by nature, so they have massively buffed the damage. With this change, they want to see new builds centered around small mag sizes, sniper rifles, and more. I think a lot of people will spec into this to try to land some sick one-shot boss kills, so I cannot wait to try this one out. Duct Tape Mod, they are decreasing the grenade cooldown by half. They wrote that they found the value of this passive skill was limited by the cooldown between each grenade, so they've cut that in half. Players will need to be conscious of cooldown time and type of grenade mod they use to get the maximum value out of this passive skill. Now, this is a skill that makes great use out of the Piss Grenade to constantly debuff enemies, or maybe even the Aghast Call to deal some insane damage, depending on how much of a buff that thing gets with this. The Like a Ghost skill is getting an increased chance of its base effect and an increase for the bonus for each active action skill. They wrote, the stacking bonus only occurs each time one of Zane's action skills is activated. This is infrequent in the late game, as players generally extend their action skill duration time. They've made this change with that play style in mind. This sounds like it will give you a much higher chance to ignore bullets, which is great for clone and drone build. If you're already doing a barrier build, then the skill will largely be unimportant to you, but it still remains to be seen how much these changes actually take effect. Trick of the Light, they are increasing the damage bonus. The damage from this skill depends on the number of enemies targeting Zane and Zane's clone, and can occasionally be unpredictable. To better account for this inconsistency, they're buffing the damage bonus. So this skill, when paired with the action skill augment, which one's real, can potentially increase Zane's damage to crazy heights. Make sure you also use Quick Breather, so that when you do swap places with your clone, it will heal your clone by 50% each time you swap places with him. Best Serve Cold, they are increasing the damage from Cryo Novas. Now this one is interesting. Recently, shields got an increase to Nova damage, and we talked about this a moment ago. The shield Nova damage is now on par with Mayhem 10, but skills like this one didn't really see that damage increase, so hopefully this will now be capable capable of doing more than just tickling enemies. For Futility Belt, they are increasing the damage reduction. This is a single point skill that gives Zane the chance to resist non-elemental damage, and when Zane scores a kill, all elemental damage Zane takes is converted to non-elemental damage. And this is what they wrote about this. They said, to help encourage players to consider builds that remove elemental damage, we've buffed the damage mitigation to be stronger here. So I'm eager to see how these various skill changes coupled with various class mods that we haven't been using in a long time can make some new and exciting Zane builds that aren't so dependent on the See Undead class mod. And speaking of class mods, there are some class mod changes as well, starting with the Antifreeze. They are increasing the movement speed while taking cryo damage. So one of the most annoying things in this game is being slowed while taking cryo damage. Well, Zane with the Antifreeze actually gains speed when hit with cryo, so increasing that stat could make this class mod even more interesting for some builds. The Conductor class mod, they're increasing the damage bonus. Now they said the damage bonus for this class mod is dependent on the amount of action skill duration, the time that you have left. Like Trick of the Light, this damage can feel inconsistent. They have increased the damage bonus to provide more reliable damage. And this is an interesting class mod that has a lot of potential, but the bonus was 25% stacking depending on how much action skill you had remaining. So with both of Zane's skills active at the same time, that would be 50% bonus shock damage if both bars are full, and that just wasn't enough to warrant this class mod. So if that bonus increases the number to 100% or more with this change, then you're going to have a nice little shield destroying class mod on your hands. The Executor, they are increasing the stat bonuses. Players suggested that the stat bonuses provided as a kill skill weren't strong enough to feel the value. They're buffing each significantly. This class mod for Zane increases accuracy, handling, critical hit damage, status effect damage, and status effect chance. The critical damage was 20%, and that honestly was the most important stat to boost in my opinion, so I'm curious to see how much this gets increased by. And then finally, the Tech Spurt. They are increasing the chance of recharge to Sentinel's cooldown and active duration. Here's what they said about this. The intent of this class mod is to provide a way to keep Zane's drone active nearly indefinitely, but at 5% chance to refill the cooldown and duration, it wasn't consistent enough. They have increased the likelihood of this behavior occurring, and I know what you're thinking, but K6, can't we just keep the drone up nonstop already with the See Undead class mod? Well, yeah, but the idea here is to give you another way to do that with a base game class mod while also promoting even more build diversity. And this class mod can boost 3 different skills: Rise to the Occasion for health regen, Ready for Action to increase your shield recharge rate and delay, and Really Expensive Jacket, which can reduce status effect duration on Zane. But I highly recommend that if you want to try this class mod for a build, to ignore the boost to Rise to the Occasion and Really Expensive Jacket and try to get one with +5 to Ready for Action and keep your shield maxed out all the time. So there you have it, a lot of amazing changes in the start of what should be a really awesome Bloody Harvest event. I hope you guys enjoyed this look at the hotfixes and my analysis of what they mean. If you did, then please take a second and hit that like button. If you want to see more Borderlands 3 videos, then be sure to subscribe. And if you'd like to see these changes tested out, then head over to my Twitch channel where I'm live at the time of this video's release testing these things out. Link to my Twitch is in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care.